It does have some major drawbacks in comparison to other track variant German sports cars of the time, which is why I didn't buy one when they were cheap. I didn't think they were worth it back then, but clearly I'm the idiot.
Sold at $225,000.
Welcome to Movie's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube. And when you think of Mercedes, the first thing you think of is, well, the best or nothing, excellence in engineering, or massive depreciation, especially if you've been caught on the wrong side of it. I try and buy things at the very bottom, hence why I was showing off in my first video when I bought this 2008 CL65 AMG for $19,000, even though it cost over $200,000 new. I lined up 5 Mercedes and showed almost $1 million in depreciation. But one car I did leave out of it was my 2011 Mercedes SLS AMG, which I have sold. That was the only car that appreciated above or near its MSRP for nice low mileage examples, but they have depreciated a lot in recent months, along with just about anything else exotic that they made in large numbers. Lamborghini Huracans, Ferrari 458s, Mercedes SLSs, they made 10,000 of them almost. There's still a lot of them out there, and the collector car market is really suffering. And boy, I should have taken that offer 6 months ago that I had on the entire fleet. I had a great one on the SLS, and they've since gone down. But I bit the bullet, sold the car, and it is gone. I love that thing, the 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8, the doors, of course, the dual clutch transmission. But there is one exception to this rule when it comes to Mercedes depreciation that we're going to go visit today. I'm going to drive to Winfield, Kansas, and see about the only Mercedes bucking the trend, setting new records each time a new low mileage example comes up for sale. Unlike the SLR McLaren that is flatlined, and unlike certainly, well, these CL65s, because they're worthless. But I gotta tell you, the CL65 is definitely cushioning the blow when it comes to having to sell the SLS, because I get over 600 horsepower in this very luxurious V12 that massages me. The ride is incredible and supple, but I am waiting for some new wheels and tires. Hence why I'm limping it on this one that is losing air very quickly. It is completely flat, so before we hit the road, I need to air up this tire. But before we fire up the noisy tire pump and hit the road, I would like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. It's the new year and a great time to work on yourself. Personally, I'm trying to plow through all these expenses with the new garage and farmhouse renovation, then sit back and take a hard look at my work-life balance, which hasn't been very, well, balanced. And that's where therapy can help me achieve these goals. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier and much less intimidating for a lot of people, and you can check it out in the link below or at betterhelp.com/Hoovies. BetterHelp lets you have therapy sessions as a phone call, as a video chat, or even messaging, whatever's the most comfortable version of therapy for you. BetterHelp can match you with one of over 30,000 therapists in their network based on your needs, preferences, and location, which gives you access to a wider range of expertise than what may be available in your city. To get started, you fill out a questionnaire that will ask you questions about what challenges you're going through and what kind of therapist you'd like, and then BetterHelp can match you with a therapist to help you. You'll be matched with a therapist in most cases within 48 hours. You can schedule therapy sessions at a time that's convenient for you. If you feel like your therapist isn't a great fit, you can switch therapists with a click of a button in your settings at no additional cost. So join over 4 million people who've used BetterHelp to start living a healthier, happier life. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Hoovies. Well, small issue. This tire pump either can't keep up with the air going out of the tire or the tire is off the bead. So now I'm going to look like a lot of 5th, 6th, 7th Mercedes-Benz owners and be rolling on a donut for a little bit while I wait for these new wheels and tires to arrive. $200,000 new, and it's now a hoopty. Okay, well, after all that hard labor, I certainly need a fast and vigorous massage. There we go, and then 600 horsepower on tap. Holy moly. Actually, I got lucky on the wheel change because all I needed to do was put the tire up in the air off the ground, and that allowed it to reseat on the bead, the tire itself, to where it would accept air. So I am on its very beat up stock wheels and tires for just another week or so until the new wheels arrive. Now, so far I've spent about $3,700 in this car since buying it for $19,000. The biggest thing was the collapsed motor mounts and transmission mounts, which made a world of difference on this car. It was so noticeable, but now I have none of that driveline vibration, a silky, silky smooth V12. It feels like an electric car now with this linear, hard-pulling acceleration that is also almost completely silent. You can hear the turbos a little bit, the moan of that, and a slight V12 exhaust note. But unlike the AMG V8s of most other AMGs, this thing is just very quiet. Other work was mostly electrical, like a rear sonar was causing a warning light, little things like that. So sorting it out, not all that bad. The new wheels and tires will be another $2,000. So for about $5,000 or about 24, let's say $25,000 by the time I go through in detail, touch up the bumper and all that stuff, I have a supercar for $25,000. Is just absolutely insane, but I'll never get more than that probably out of it. That's the thing. I can own this car and enjoy it, but there's no chance of any appreciation, despite how rare this thing is, even though they made a few hundred of these per year, which history tells me this will always be a cheap hoopty, which is fine. It's much better to have a car like this than ones that speculators put up to the moon and then eventually crash. Back to Mercedes, like I said, there is one exception to this rule, and we're gonna drive 1 hour away to see an example of it at Epicenter Garage. You can check out their channel, I'll have it linked below. They posted their first video in 6-7 months, so do give that video a watch to give him some encouragement, because he has the most amazing car collection in the state of Kansas, I think. Well, here's the exception to Mercedes-Benz depreciation. It's a pretty easy rule to remember. If it says Black Series on the back, then chances are it's worth way, way more than what it cost brand new. In this case, this one's been driven a little bit, 49,000 miles on this 2008 CLK Black Series, so maybe not quite at its original MSRP of $139,000, but lower mileage ones, they are setting record after record, including at the most recent Barrett-Jackson collector car auction. They had a white one with under 2,000 miles, set an all-new record of $248,000 for a CLK. Something that shares most of its parts with like a CLK320 or 500 that is a worthless used car, but obviously this one is pretty special. They built 500 of these CLK Black Series. Most of them were sent to the United States. I think 350 of them or so in the US, and it is really, really cool, but it does have some major drawbacks in comparison to other track variant German sports cars of the time, which is why I didn't buy one when they were cheap. I didn't think they were worth it back then, but clearly I'm the idiot. There's certainly no denying that this has to be one of the best looking AMGs ever. They styled it to make it look like the Formula One safety car of the time, except not as crazy in your face in the styling as something with a big wing, a very popular thing to do in the mid-2000s to make them look, well, really ridiculous. This one, I wouldn't say it's subtle, but it is very elegantly done. The wide body treatment you can see in the back, the fender flares, the extra aerodynamics here in the bottom, all in carbon fiber. Same with the spoiler. No big giant wang, but still a nice little spoiler there. And going to the front, you do have these exits in the fenders. Once again, that wide body, the beautiful alloy wheels, little extra carbon fiber down here in the front bumper. But otherwise, well, from here, it looks like a normal CLK. Now, what you do give up with the Black Series, and one of the reasons why I never bought this, is the back seat. So you can't haul your kids in this because there is no rear seat, but there is sort of a hump resembling a rear seat. You still have rear vents for non-existent passengers in the back. Interior-wise, the seats are very different, much thicker bolsters and manual in a lot of places to save weight. The steering wheel, much more sporty. You can see the carbon fiber here and the shifter as well. A little rinky-dink thing to make it look like a Ferrari or some sort of sequential gearbox, but it's not. It's just the normal slush box. And as far as weight savings, well, there isn't very much. It weighs almost exactly the same as a normal CLK. So they took out all this extra bit in the inside to try and save weight, but all of the added junk on the outside, and the weight's more or less the same. This is still a big, heavy car with a normal automatic transmission designed to compete with, say, this thing right here. Yeah, the GT3 RS, where you could get a manual transmission. Obviously, these are much more in your face when it comes to the styling, but the fact that these two were supposed to be competitors, it's laughable. It's not even close to the same. Under the hood is the early iteration of the 6.2 liter V8, which they rounded up to 6.3 for the badges for heritage purposes. The original performance AMG V8, the Red Pig, had a 6.3 V8, and since this one was close enough, they decided to make it a 6.3 as well. 500 horsepower on this engine, hand built by a Bertinafu. Yeah, unlike AMG nowadays, it was one man, one engine, hand assembling every single one of these. And unfortunately, these early 6.2s suffered from head bolt failures, which is something a lot of people do as a preventative for around $5,000. They have to tear down and replace the head bolts, which is better than completely failing the engine than having to deal with a replacement. Now, those kind of engineering snafus with Mercedes are rare, much more common with Porsche and BMW to screw up something deep inside the engine. So that makes it a lot more sporty in that sense. But the driving experience, I never really had a chance to open one of these up, and I imagine it's now 15 years old and not even close to, say, an AMG GTR or something like that, even though price tag wise, they're on the same planet, which is just crazy to think. So I really wanted to drive this today and see if there really is some kind of magic sauce with a CLK other than its looks and the low production numbers that are fueling this anomaly in the Mercedes world when it comes to appreciation. So let's take it for a ride. One big difference though between this and the SLS, the steering, much firmer. Wow, for parking lot maneuverability here. Okay. Ooh, watch that fender flare on the Civic. And we're out. And to think, somebody paid $70,000 or $80,000 more for this CL65, and now it's worth less than, say, a fully loaded Mitsubishi Mirage. This body style of S-Class always looked really nice with its wide hips as well, but obviously a lot more hippage going on here than on the CL65. But you would never think that this is now worth 10 times as much as that. So silly. Well, I'm missing my fast and vigorous massage already. I don't have anything like that. I mean, I don't even have heated seats. There's all these dummy buttons right here because this is a stripper race car version. And immediately I can tell a massive, massive difference in the steering and the suspension of this thing. On the CL, it has an active suspension that even turned all the way up is very cushy. This one, well, it's harsher than even the SLS, and it already got the tail loose when I wasn't even trying to get the tail loose there. Jeez. Finally, some nice 2 lanes here. Let's get into it. Well, it definitely has traction control and it does kick in, but just to the point where this thing is just wagging its tail the whole time that you are accelerating. Like, I'm just barely going to keep this car from killing you. There's definitely no other Mercedes that I've ever driven that feels like this. This feels like a sports car. Right on the edge. Even with that goofy, slushy gearbox. Whoa. The thing about my old SLS is in comfort mode, it feels like a soft, cushy, nice touring car. And same with every other modern AMG with an active suspension to where it doesn't feel like this. It's just too smart, so it's always doing the right thing. This feels old school, but old school and nimble. Like really nicely done. Huh. Yeah, it's a lot more like the SLR McLaren, except the SLR, it feels like a very big, weird car. Oh, that V8 too. That's the thing I'm going to miss the most of the SLS, is that noise. And once again, something that Mercedes is doing a pretty good job, even though they have turbos on their V8s now, but they don't sound like this. Here, let's whip it around. Wow. I don't dare turn the traction control off. So weird how this thing wanders. Yeah, the owner Brian said that that's a trait with these, and it certainly is. Certainly a much worse performing car than the SLS and the SLR in every way for it to be squirrely like that. But it does feel special. It does have that same, just that little extra thing that the SLR has over the SLS, and I feel like this Black Series has it too. I didn't expect to think that, but I also can't help but think that Mercedes should have gone just a little bit farther on this car, just a bit, mostly with that gearbox. If they had figured out how to get one of their 6-speed manuals behind this engine, then this would be a legend. It'd be $500,000, it'd be $1 million car probably, and the only thing really holding it back is that slush box. Now, would I buy one at the current market? Probably not, almost certainly not, but I do now appreciate much more and understand why people are treating these like the blue chip collectibles that they are, production numbers and looks aside. It is really fun. Thank you so much for watching.